events. Having said that, the Indian society, because of the increasing communications revolution and the middle class aspirations and global travel and transfer of ideas and technology, is now a reality. But we also must recognize that we are resource poor as a country. Sometimes when we discuss India, we forget that.
Yes.
We are, in terms of water, one of the poorer countries. In terms of non-ferrous minerals, one of the poorer countries. In terms of oil, one of the poorest countries in the world.
Okay.
So we have some huge problems. But how do we leverage our strengths and how do we combat our weaknesses in the next 20 years is going to determine the future. And the most important determinant in this will be the transformation of political institutions, whereby we can guarantee education and health care to a vast population.
Where will India be in relation to regional powers and superpowers in the year 2025?
India, United States, European Union and Brazil, in my judgment, they have no serious problems of perception, of understanding, of a worldview. Russia is going to be a major player, not merely because it was in the past 50 years, but because Siberia is going to give them unique advantages with global warming. Many people don't adequately realize that.
Okay, yes.
What is now a wasteland is going to be an important area, land mass, both for agriculture and for fuel, because in the next 25-30 years, for the first time in human history, people are going to compete for land, not only for food, but also for fuel. Never before did mankind depend on land for fuel. And this is going to be the trend of the next 2 or 3 generations, in fact. And Siberia gives a huge advantage, as Brazil gives a great advantage to Brazilians. India also has some advantage there because we have right now one of the world's largest land masses for agriculture, though India in terms of land mass is actually very small, only 2.5% of the global area. India already has 12% of the world's agricultural land.
Okay.
It's not going to grow, it's going to actually come down because as Siberia and many other tracts in the world are going to be agriculturally productive, our share is going to come down, but still we're going to be very significant and sunlight is going to be very important. China is going to be obviously the major player in the world after the United States. Let's face it, by 2025, China will be indubitably the number 2 power in the world, almost equal to the United States. Russia will be a major player because of its land mass and its technological capabilities and nuclear capabilities and its oil and other resource base. But because of its population disadvantage, only 110 million or so, it's going to be a distant third probably. India will not be a global power in a traditional sense. India will be a soft power, an important economic power. But I don't see India as a global military power because that's not the aspiration of India in the first place. And it's unlikely that India will be seen as a power as important as China. However difficult it is for Indians to accept it. But India is going to be the second most important power in Asia and will be an important power globally for regional peace and stability.
What issues will define the relationship among the powers like Brazil, China, India, European Union and USA with India? And will it be oil, water, energy, markets or population?
United States, European Union, India will have a fairly harmonious strategic relationship. Not necessarily in military terms, but in economic and in political terms. Russia and India will have a very comfortable equation, not based on people-to-people cooperation, because I don't think many Russians know about India, I don't think many Indians know about Russia. But over the past 50 years during the Cold War and it continues now, there has been a strategic relationship and that will continue. And India will need Russia because of its resources. Russia will need India because of its people, because Russian population is actually declining. And Russia and China, because of obvious reasons, there will be some amount of discord, even there is going to be greater economic cooperation, because there is some element of mistrust on the border for a variety of reasons. And China and India will have a reasonably harmonious relationship and probably the border problems will be solved by that time. But China will definitely forge ahead of India and Russia. In effect, I foresee that there will be one pole of the United States, Europe, with India being comfortable politically with that pole, with Russia being on its own, with some of the Eastern European bloc and some of the countries which depend on Russia for fuel, etc., China being a separate pole. Brazil will be broadly an American thing. Brazil will be more an issue of raw materials and fuel and biofuels, not a strategic power in that sense.
What issues will define the relationship among these powers? Will it be water, oil, energy, technology, markets?
Energy, technology, markets, and populations. Oil probably by 2025 will be a diminishing thing. Already many people believe that we might have reached peak oil production globally. If we have not reached today, we will certainly reach it by 2025 or thereabout. So the future is going to be with biofuels, land-based biofuels. And a shift from fossil fuels to biofuels is imminent, not only because oil is now in short supply increasingly, but global warming concerns will drive us in that direction, and technology is making that change both possible and rapid, because very soon we are going to get grip of the enzymes required at an economic cost to convert cellulose, all the plant mass, into usable energy form like oil. And we are pretty much close to it. Already technology is known, but it's now expensive. But in the next decade it will be pretty much affordable globally. And I see that as the wave of the future. Therefore, energy needs are going to be perhaps the single most determinant of global trade and global relationships in the next 20-25 years. But obviously technology is linked to that, and trade is linked to that, because without trade today, nations will simply perish. Economically speaking, they don't exist if they don't trade increasingly globally. Population is going to be important because a part of the world is declining in population, a part of the world is growing in population. India is one of the countries which is still growing, but also which has an incredibly young population. India will certainly have the largest number of young people in the working age in the world.
What will be India's major strength in this global village?
I think India is a very stabilizing force. Indian history, Indian culture, and Indian population, the Indian immigrants abroad, all this shows that India is an extraordinarily stabilizing force with the capacity for integration, and without any violent ideologies or without a desire for expansionism. And therefore Indian growth is going to be an important stabilizing force across the world. And we have significant soft skills and soft power which will be important for the global growth.
Despite the fact that India has a burgeoning middle class of about 300 million people, there are as many people who are an underclass. What will be their condition in 2025?
I am reasonably confident that we will be able to fulfill our vast potential. In the past 50 years, we have failed in a significant measure because somehow our politics and economic policies have ignored the need for empowering our people for providing skills. We have centralized governments in the country until now, and we have not really given adequate emphasis to education and health care. We've been talking about it, but we have not educated our people. We have not really taken care of health. As I said before, while our problems are gargantuan, our capabilities are quite phenomenal. We have actually even today the capability to build something like a national health service in India within the next 2 years, if India really means it. We have the capability. We have a pharmaceutical industry which is formidable, which can produce low-cost drugs almost to any quantity that we require. We have medical manpower or resource, human resource, which is second to none in terms of size and quality. So we have significant strengths, but we haven't really built the organizations required to provide health care to everybody. So is the case with education. And we have to decentralize power, and we have to transform our political institutions.
To what extent India's internal fault lines of caste, region, religion, and abject poverty for millions of citizens limit its role as a superpower?
I don't think religious fault lines are a serious limiting factor, because India has learned to live with each other, Indian people across religions.